Hello there, it's another weekend. For the next half hour, I have a brief of the most trending political stories in the country. Now, withdraw the military or face our wrath. That's the demand by the minority voter caucus in Parliament to government as it alleges a deliberate attempt to intimidate potential voters in their Ketu South stronghold from registering.
MPs, assemblymen, executives, constituency, branch executives, Medeshiada, Mido, Mijiamo, Amayo card Laushi, Amayo passport Laushi, mi vatafli, mi register, na nofuma, na guarantee namo.
Well, that's Elvis Sefriyankra there will engage some residents along the Elubo and Hamile borders.
We need soldiers around due to our porous borders. However, as we speak, there's not a single soldier in town.
Adenta High Court dismisses case filed against the Electoral Commission's voter registration exercise set to come off on Tuesday, June 30. And the Electoral Commission again holds workshop for persons with disability. We're live from our studio here at Koforidua in Accra, live on DSTV channel 421 and GoTV channel 144. My name is Mama Vio Swabwade. Stay with us. Now, Accra or Adenta High Court has dismissed a case filed against the EC's voter registration exercise set to come off on Tuesday, June 30. The court held that the case raises issues already determined by the Supreme Court. Lawyers for Ashaman MP Ernest Nogbe had tried to make a last-minute request to the High Court to injunct the EC's registration of voters. They maintain the Supreme Court decision allowing the exercise to go ahead in compliance with CI 126 cannot be adequate lawful basis. They say CI 126 does provide for the completion of a new register. The court, however, disagreed. We're going to be joined by my colleague Joseph Akable, who's our court correspondent. Joseph, if you can hear me, tell us about the arguments made by the lawyers in the case.
And so first, Dr. Bamba, who represents the NDC MP, he started by making the point that, as far as they are concerned, the Supreme Court judgment does not apply to their case because that was an issue of interpretation that the Supreme Court was asked to do. And the Supreme Court gave an order that it applies to cases that are similar or the same. And so his argument was that their case was different in that they are questioning whether there is a legal basis for the EC to compile a new register. And their point is that CI 126, which they're supposed to be used to compile the register, does not allow for the compilation. It actually came in to amend CI 91, which was used to compile the register. So he says if the EC is allowed to go ahead, it means you're going to have two registers, one compiled under CI 191 and another compiled under CI 126. But the EC's legal team, led by Justin Amenuvo, disagreed. He urged the court to dismiss the case, explaining that the Supreme Court dealt with the same issue, and in fact, this case arises out of the same set of facts, in that it's because the EC is compiling the register and is seeking to ultimately stop the EC from compiling that register. He added that it was because the Supreme Court was well aware of this pending matter, for which reason it gave that order that courts should apply the decision. But Dr. Bamba insisted that, even the written judgment of the Supreme Court is supposed to be out sometime in July. And so once that is even not available, he's wondering how the court could even say that it's going to apply the decision of the court.
Joseph, you've also been speaking to the lawyers for the Ashaman MP. What have they been saying?
Dr. Aziz Bamba, who is lead counsel, maintains there is no legal basis for the compilation of the new register.
Joseph, thank you very much. That's our court correspondent, Joseph Akable, reporting on today's court decision in Adenta High Court. Moving on, the Electoral Commission says registration centers designated for Tuesday's mass registration exercise will be accessible to persons living with disability. Out of the 2 million registered persons with disability, the Commission says it is expected to register about 500,000 at the end of the exercise. Let's go live and speak to my colleague, Kwesi Parker Wilson, who was at that media engagement earlier. Parker, what exactly are the measures the EC has taken to ensure a smooth process for persons with disability? Parker, if you can hear me, can you unmute your mic so we can hear you?
Right, so when you can hear when persons living with disability yesterday the registration center, all they have to do is to
Hello, Parker. It's a bit difficult. It's a bit difficult hearing you. Can you speak up a bit?
Right. So the point I'm making is that the commission has been talking about the PWDs, I mean the persons with disability, to identify themselves when they get to the registration center, so that at least the EC officials, the registration officials, will know that indeed they are disabled and will facilitate their registration. The argument they made was that some of the disability is not feasible, and so if you don't tell the registration officer, there's no way they are going to know in order to quickly get to jump the queue to be registered. Again, they have created some centers at their district offices where they are asking the disabled persons to quickly go there instead and register, because for that they are going to rely solely on the data that has been captured in their names. So they have about 2 million names. So that is the data they'll be using at the district offices. So they want them to go there and then go and register. And then they've been teaching them about the safety protocols as well, what they need to do when they get to the registration exercise, what they have to do. And I was in there a while ago. The EC official there is taking them through how the registration process will be like. And that's what is happening currently. So the program hasn't ended yet. They are still educating the persons with disability on what to do when they get to the registration exercise. But the EC clearly has maintained that all the polling centers designated for tomorrow's exercise will be accessible to all persons under this category.
Parker, is this training going on in other regions?
No, so that is one of the questions one of the persons with disability mentioned or asked, actually, that the timing is a bit wrong because it is just a day before the main exercise. It will be very difficult for them to send communication to their colleagues in the other regions. They would have wished that the Electoral Commission replicates this training at the various regions. And the answer being given was that because of the legal suit against the Commission and also the restrictions, it made it impossible for the Commission to facilitate some of these engagements. Now, it is their belief that as they are giving them this training, they will find ways of sending the information to their colleagues out there. And even with the Commission as well, whilst the exercise is going on, it's going to take about 33 days. They're expecting that their officers within the various districts and the various regions would organize a similar programs like this and let the persons with disability understand what they need to do when they get to the registration center.
And that's my colleague, Kwesi Parker Wilson, reporting there. You're watching Election Brief. The NDC says the deployment of military and other security personnel to border towns in the Volta and Oti regions is creating panic and anxiety amongst residents. MP for Adansia Sokwa Katie Hammond had indicated that the troops were sent to ensure foreigners to not get to register to vote in Ghana's elections. But speaking at the NDC's press conference in the Ketu South district of the Volta region, MP for the area Fifi Kwete says this move by government is an insult to the intelligence of the people in the Volta region. We'll bring you details of that press briefing shortly, but first, here is a wrap of what has transpired so far by Henry Kwesibedu. Read to you.
Earlier this week, there were reports some security officials have been deployed into some communities in the Volta region. This sparked some controversy. First, some residents of Ketu South who spoke to JoyNews alleged these security officials in their neighborhood were intimidating and physically abusing them.
We are suffering here. The way life day before, there is no way life day is now. Before we get food, we are suffering before we get food here. Before we get food, we went to enter Togo before we bring food back for our brothers, our mothers to eat. Now, soldiers are around, beating people. So we don't get food to eat. So we need government to do something about this. We are suffering here too.
I'm a teacher in Togo, but I have been in Ghana for a year now. Though the border is closed, we are still doing our best to continue living.
We do our business in Togo, but since the closure of the border, we are not able to go there. Now they have brought soldiers here because we will be registering on Thursday. Honestly speaking, it will be more difficult for us now. It is our prayer the government can help in a way, because some of our siblings also school in Togo.
The minority in parliament then accused the government of deliberately spearheading the deployment to prevent residents who are believed to be on the side of the minority from openly participating in the upcoming voters' registration.
In a few days, we are going to commence with the compilation of a new voters' register without any provocation whatsoever. The state has decided to deploy military personnel and platforms along our frontiers, which are also perceived to be the strongholds of the opposition NDC. Our take on the unprovoked deployment is that there is a certain scheme which is designed by government to intimidate our teeming supporters.
Government appointees and MPP parliamentarians have been responding to these concerns. First to respond to the minority was Adansia Sokwa MP, KT Hammond. He was emphatic. The security officials are in the Volta region to prevent foreigners from registering for the new voter roll.
The Togolese and the Voltarians, when I'm talking about Volta region, I mean, there is a kind of, remember the history, Professor, if you guys know the history about this place, basically the same tribe. So they walk in, come, but they are not Ghanaians. And when they walk in there, they can do whatever they do. So I guess that is the reason for that. This is the whole issue. We want there to be sanity. The military is there to make sure that you vote if you are Ghanaian. You vote if you have the right, constitutional right in Ghana to vote. That's all there is. They are not electoral officers, but they are peace-keeping force. They are keeping the peace.
That was Friday morning. Later that evening, Volta Regional Minister Dr. Archibald Lecha said that was not the reason why the deployment was made.
As far as I am aware, this is not meant to intimidate anybody. This is not supposed to interfere with the voter registration. In any case, the borders are closed. So if we enforce the closure of the border, which are closed in any way, so I don't think there's any problem.
On Saturday morning, Interior Minister Ambrose Derry seems to settle the contradictions with an insistence the security operatives are in the Volta region to simply enforce government border closure aimed at halting the spread of COVID-19.
It's seriously misconceived. We closed the borders as part of the COVID protocols. And you recall that when it all started, the first batch of positives were 1 Ghanaians who came from outside, 2 nationals of neighboring countries. As part of the protocols, we closed the borders. And when we closed the borders, we set up security personnel to maintain them. Our experience over the time is that the eastern border continued to give us a cause for worry because we were coming in. We've now discovered over 250 unapproved routes. So the police and the military being there is to ensure that our borders are closed.
Henry Kwesi Bedu's report for JoyNews.
While the MP for Ketu South, Fifi Kwete, has called on civil society to condemn the move by government.
We are in no doubt that this massive deployment of the military and other security personnel in the Ketu South municipality and other border towns of our region has been timed to coincide with the commencement of the voter registration exercise across the country. These deployments are creating panic and anxiety among residents of Ketu South and other affected towns and districts. Interviews done by some of your colleagues in the media reveal that residents along the Ghana-Togo border are living in a state of fear due to the presence of the military. The MC of Ketu South, who represent the presence here, has explained that the reason for the deployment of the military personnel is so that they can help check and approve routes to prevent foreigners who happen to be infected with COVID-19 from coming from neighboring Togo and risk increasing the cases of COVID in our country. Now, this position has been supported by the Volta Regional Minister, Dr. Lecha, as well. Now, so this is the official government explanation for the turning of Aplau and other border towns in the region into virtual war zones. How laughable, how utterly ridiculous. The total COVID-19 case count in Togo stands at about 615. This is less than the case count in Greater Accra, less than Ashanti region, less than the Western region, less than the Central region, and just about 75 cases above the case count in the Eastern region. Now, so if there is any fear of COVID, it should rather be the people of Togo who should be afraid of Ghanaians crossing the border to spread COVID-19 in Togo, and not the other way around. The epicenter of COVID-19 in West Africa is not Togo. Ghana is in a very comfortable lead and struggling to be one of the highest as far as the region is concerned. So, and also, one of the first persons who came into our country with the virus was in the presidential entourage in Oslo. So this official reason being provided is not just hollow, it is laughable and actually represents an insult to the intelligence of our people. Just a few days ago, the MPP parliamentary primaries across different constituencies became virtual COVID-19 dissemination conferences. If the MPP government is looking for the real threats of COVID-19, they really don't have to look very far. They should just spare us the cock and bull stories about the need to patrol the borders to stop foreigners from coming with COVID-19, and they should have the courage to simply tell the truth for once. This siege of the Volta region dates back to MPP's perennial hatred towards any group of people that they perceive as standing between them and their insatiable desire for absolute political power. The unfounded and rather incoherent rantings of my friend, K.T. Hammond, will ordinarily be treated as just that. But they reveal the same deep-seated belief that somehow the defeat of the NPP in elections in this country is on account of foreigners who come from Togo. He actually claimed that the NPP was costing to victory in the first round of the 2008 elections, and Togolese were allowed to come from across the border to overturn the results in the second round of the 2008 elections. Somehow, K.T. Hammond and the NPP have forgotten that even back in 2008, the NPP left all other borders open, but specifically closed the eastern border of this country before and during the first and second round of the 2008 elections. So the defeat of the NPP in the year 2008 had absolutely nothing to do with foreigners coming from Togo, because the borders were sealed. Exactly what it is we are seeing today.
The Director of Elections of the NDC, Elvis Ifriye Ankra, has encouraged residents to resist any attempts by government to intimidate people in the Volta region.
We don't want anybody to use this environment as an excuse to do anything against the democracy. That is why we are speaking out and sending a loud and clear warning. But there is no man, no woman, no devil, no military, no police, no soldier soldier, no Akufo-Addo that can stop the will of the people. There is nothing, absolutely nothing that can stop a determined people who are willing to stand up for their rights. We have seen it in many countries. Soja o wanto ogba tuadashi ogba amokadashi oshidu ojo. Because the will of the people is the most powerful force in this land. Human beings are created in the image of God. When majority of the people come together and determine to do something, there is nothing anybody can do. No electoral commission, no Supreme Court, no soldier, no parliament, nothing. There is nothing. There is a movement that is going on. The people of Ghana want change. This government has failed. They can eat all the gari in this world. They can go and drink all the sea in the Atlantic Ocean. Nothing will stop them from going down December 2020. So the problem is not Ashantis. The problem is not even Achims. The problem is Akufo-Addo and his small group of people who have decided to hijack power and manipulate the entire system to their political advantage. It is not even about MPP. MPP are Amoniolama. MPP people, wherever you are, you know that what your Akufo-Addo is doing is not good. He's destroying your own party. He has destroyed our democracy, has gone up 10, 50 years. This democracy that we tried to build, Akufo-Addo alone with his family, they've taken this democracy back 10, 15 years. So MPP people who know that what is happening is not good, don't collaborate with him. This is not about NDC or about Votarians against Ashantis or Achims. It's about the short man Akufo-Addo. With a small group of people, there are people in MPP who are suffering, who are hungry. Only a few people, 5, 10 people, have hijacked the resources of this country, have hijacked the power of this country. As Okujato proved the last time, they have performed 14%. They know that time is catching up with them, the clock is ticking, and the people of Ghana will vote them out. That is why they are resorting to all these tricks.
Well, government has been again denying claims by the minority. At a press briefing a while ago, the Defense Minister, Dominic Nitiwo, has been addressing the press briefing. He says Ghanaians stranded abroad who would want to partake in the registration exercise for the upcoming elections must register with their respective embassies in the controlled exercise. But even before this, he dispelled claims by the opposition NDC. Its security deployment along the country's borders is to intimidate and prevent persons living in neighboring countries from partaking in the voter registration exercise. Well, Dominic Nitiwo again says the deployments were made as far back as March 30 to help the Immigration Service ensure compliance to the border restrictions. He said prior to March 30, the March 30 deployments, government since 2019 in an operation codenamed Conquered First deployed 12 officers and 272 men of the military, 4 officers and 265 men of the police, plus 172 immigration officials and 70 GRA officials to ensure sanity along some of the country's border towns in the Upper East, Upper West, Northern and Northeast regions. So he's added also that after the security services were recalled after the lockdown was lifted, crime appeared to be rising, hence a redeployment of officers and men in what is described as enhanced calm to enforce restrictions. And after a Security Council meeting, it was decided that another deployment be made on the 18th and 19th of June along the border towns to enforce restrictions. Well, we have been monitoring the situation on the ground in other regions. Here, what residents in Lubo, a border town, told JoyNews.
Timely, no, you deploy military officers and back Kumha. enforcement.
The military officers are deployed from time to time to check enforcement at the borders.
Backgrounds are said we have military intelligence. They are not in uniform, but they are on grounds. And I'll be immigration bonus.
However, as we speak, there are no military personnel here.
Military presence from our checks, and we've been on grounds. We are quite here, but I'm not sure before we now show them. So far, no, who's up for no war.
This is where I live. I haven't seen any soldier around, not even one. To be honest, we had our soldiers coming, but there's no one here. We need soldiers around due to our porous borders. However, as we speak, there's not a single soldier in town.
Well, the defense minister has been given a breakdown of the deployment that they've made across the country. We've got details of that in other bulletins. There's a lot more election-related stories on myjoyonline.com. For now, that's your election brief. Today, my name is Mama Bio Swabwaje. Thanks for watching.